Welcome to another episode of Red and Black, where your conservatism is not just the color that you used to. I'm Lenny McAllister, the unofficial campaign manager, wait for it, for Trump Cheney 2024, where I've already figured out the campaign slogan. It's something I borrowed from the recent past. Can't we all just get along? It seemed to work for the people in Los Angeles back in the day, right?
I'm not sure.
Well, let me go and ask two Californians and a dude that's lived everywhere to see if that really works out. First of all, I'm going to go to the wannabe Californian that's really a Canadian, but really is an American now, so don't question her patriotism, Kira Davis. Hello, Kira.
Hi, Lenny.
Do you like my campaign slogan? Do you think it will work? Do you think it will help bring the GOP together?
Absolutely not. I think you are doomed to failure from the start, and you should not give up your day job.
Yeah, agreed.
You should have told me that yesterday. Yikes. Let me ask the Californian that's pretending to be a Texan. Jeff Charles, do you agree with the Canadian / Californian / don't doubt her patriotism American?
Yes, I do, and it really doesn't matter what the slogan is. I mean, we're not going to have a whole lot of unity in the conservative movement for a little while. We still got to duke it out. I mean, we still have. This is part of a showdown, so let's let it happen. I'm loving it.
Dr. Metzler, you know the cynical side of me says, "Hey, look, we're not really talking about a whole bunch of conservatives. We're talking about Republicans." Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Do you think that that's going to actually unify everybody?
No. We're just not. This whole unification thing is ridiculous. Why do we have to be unified anyway? I mean, what's the value in being unified? There is no value. Zero value. So why do it?
First of all, Dr. Metzler, look, we're not even 3 full minutes into the show and you're already giving all types of plugs for Kira's podcast. That's shameless. Shameless.
Right.
Kira, so before we go into any topics, since you were so brilliant enough to foreshadow Red and Black this week and talk about this on your podcast, why don't you dive a little bit into what you were talking about in regards to the unity versus tolerance type of back and forth that you were talking about?
What I was saying is that, there's a lot there. After every election, there's always talk about unity, right? Americans need to unify now. Republicans need to unify now. Democrats need to unify now. And I think that is a false idol that we chase. I think unity is pointless. Like Chris said, there's no use in it. I'm not going to unify with people who are fundamentally different from me, and they the same, right? Like, right. I can't unify with somebody. I am staunchly pro-life. I believe with my whole heart and all of my being that life starts at the moment of conception in the womb. I cannot unify with somebody who believes that it is okay to abort a baby in the womb up to the moment of birth. There's no common ground there. What we can do is tolerate the existence of each other's points of views, right? And then to use a term that Jeff used, we duke it out in the political theater. We duke it out with our votes. We duke it out with our debates, with our media. But the idea that we need to unify around something, even inside the Republican Party, I don't think that's necessary. We're having a fight. We'll see who comes out on top. Who comes out on top is who's going to run in 2022 and 2024 and so on and so forth. We had that battle in 2016. The Trump wing won. We'll see who wins in the next battle. But these battles are always going on. It's not, we should not be scared of it. We can tolerate each other and each other's point of view and still stand up for what we believe in and see who, at the end of the day, who comes away the victor.
Kira, so I agree with all of what you said in regards to tolerance versus unity, except for one thing, and I'm going to go to Dr. Metzler and to Jeff about it before we get into the whole Trump Cheney thing, before we get into the whole Trump Facebook thing, which will keep us busy on this show. But don't we have to unify around something, Dr. Metzler, even if it's one thing? The Constitution, American freedom, the American way of life, and the economic principles that made America great. Isn't there something, whether it's as a party or as a country that should be unifying in some way, and we're even seemingly losing grasp of that?
Well, PJ, you're a bit of a Pollyanna. You're a bit of a Pollyanna there. Look, as it relates to all of the issues that you talked about, people have very different views as to all of those things. And so you expect the party to unite on the Constitution, as an example. Nobody has ever united on the Constitution. There is still this debate as to whether it is a living, breathing document. So I don't, I don't see the need for it.
Jeff, am I the only hopeless romantic on red and black? Please tell me no.
Yeah, no, you kind of are. I mean, because the thing is, there's no way people are ever going to find one thing that every single person can agree on. That's impossible. Right. I mean, even if you're talking about even in a small city, you're not going to find one thing that every single person can unite on. Now, I can respect people's views. I can respect people. I can have a beer with people who disagree with me. But again, like Kira said, I can't really have unity with somebody on abortion when they think it's okay to terminate a pregnancy up to birth. I can't unify with people who want to crush my right for free speech. I can't unify with people who like pineapple on pizza or think that Star Trek is better than Star Wars. There has always been division in this country. There have always been issues that we've debated over.
California pizza.
And this is never going to end. It's been that way since the nation's inception. So it's not always a bad thing as long as we're not letting it to get to the point to where we're trying to kill each other or that we hate each other.
Yeah,
that kind of thing. That can be dangerous.
We can be on the same side and not necessarily be. I understand what you're saying, Lenny, right? Because obviously, I mean, our votes have to go somewhere. So are we going to unify on the right? Or are we going to unify on the left? I think that's what you're meaning.
That's about it.
I'm not seeing unity in that same definition. We're on the same side of the political fence, and that's all we need. We know we're not Democrats. But as far as like everybody kind of unifying around one person or one idea, no, we're not going to get that, and that's done.
No, and nor should we, honestly. And again, I think what I was asking for, and you all kind of answered it in one regard, which is, okay, there is some still type of a unifying identity, even if it's not, here are these 10 Republican principles or conservative principles, and you have to go through the purity contest and check all 10 boxes. That's silly. And furthermore, I think that's un-American. And I think that was the point that you were making in your podcast. And that's the reason why Chris kind of plugged you early in the show. So make sure that you send him his bottle of wine to make sure you got more hits on Just Listen to Yourself. Or it wasn't even on Just Listen to Yourself. It was on the new YouTube live, was it not?
Yeah, I do a YouTube live every Monday night. And so that was kind of my rant this week.
Yep, I enjoyed it tremendously.
Thank you.
So, I mean, number one, I pay attention to you all stuff.
Thank you, Lenny.
She's trying to edge you out of the Monday night neighborhood there, Jeff. You're going to have to come back strong or something, right?
Jeff, do you broadcast on Monday nights?
Yeah, I broadcast A Fresh Perspective with Jeff Charles on YouTube every Monday and Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard.
Ratings wars.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There we go.
See, and when I saw you, I didn't get to catch your live stream, but if I would have known about it, I would have tuned in earlier and then probably talked about it on my show, because I wanted to hear what you were saying, but I didn't get a chance to hear it.
I do 7, so no excuse next Monday, Jeff.
Yeah, that's right.
We're trying to be moguls here, folks. So this is why you got to subscribe to Red and Black, because you get a little bit of everything. Speaking of a little bit of everything, Kira, I'm going to go to you eventually, because I want to talk about an article you wrote on Red State. We don't usually talk about the Red State articles as much as we used to, but this is the week where I want to. I want to actually go to you, Dr. Metzler, first, because you know everybody. So to me, that means you know these folks right here. You have had an opportunity to talk to the Liz Cheneys and the President Trumps behind the scenes. You've seen the machinations of all this. We're hearing that there may be a vote on Wednesday to get her out of leadership within the Republican conference. But is that going to be the end of the story? Should Representative Cheney be removed from that? And then where does it go from there?
No, it's not, in fact, the end of the story. Yes, she will definitely be removed, and I think she's aware of that. However, for her, the question becomes, does this make her stronger ultimately? That's the question. Look, she's going to be removed. There's no question about that. The former president has said that he wants her out. McCarthy caught on a hot mic that was not a hot mic, it was a controlled leak. He knew exactly what he was doing. And so it's, she's done relative to that leadership position. The question becomes, does she run again? Or, as she has teased, does she run for president to be a thorn in the side of Republicans? That's the question.
And Kara, why? I mean, if you're not, look, I've never understood why anybody would run for office. As difficult as it is to run for office and run and not try to win. You can say the odds are against you, but to say the odds are against you, and I really don't care if I'm going to win. I just want to be the thorn in somebody's side. I want to be a spoiler. I mean, you're the dude. You're the dude or the woman playing kickball, knowing that you're going to get hit upside the head when you're rounding second base trying to make a triple. You're the person that's in the outfield picking up daisies when the fly ball's going over your head. Why are you even there?
I think you're mischaracterizing it, Lenny. There is much value in running for office, because then you can write a book about how you ran for office, and then you can go on the speaking circuit about how you ran for office, and you will always be listed as former presidential candidate, and you'll get to go. And if you're running for office against the Republican contender, then you get to go, you'll get the blessing of all the liberal media, and you'll get invited to The View, and you'll get invited on CNN, and you'll be everybody's hero. You'll be Ana Navarro, So yeah, there is value in it for her, like just personal value. Can she win? Absolutely not. She will be completely rejected. I don't even think she'll have a chance to be a thorn in anyone's side, because I don't see many Republicans voting for Liz Cheney. But again, that's something that's going to be up to the people, and that's the thing that everyone's bitching at each other on Twitter about Liz Cheney and Marjorie Taylor Greene and blah, blah, blah. And the conversation is not including the fact that Liz Cheney's voters are going to have a chance to decide if they like what she's saying or not, just like MTG's voters. And then if she decides to take her campaign national, we'll all have the chance to decide. So no one's canceling Liz Cheney, nobody. It's not like that. The voters are going to get to decide. The party will decide what committee she gets to sit on or what influence she has while she's working. But I think she has a lot to gain for running for president. She has absolutely no chance of winning, but that's not what she wants. She'll be able to go on the book tour with Hillary and Obama.
Yeah.
Really though. I mean, it works for some people and not for everybody, Jeff. I mean, number one, she's going to get dragged. I mean, first of all, by the way, Kira, I love the fact that you're threatening the record of name dropping who we're going to drag on this show in regards to the different names. You kind of went there pretty fast. We're at the 14-minute mark. Good show on that, because usually we're dropping she, who shall not be named, or your favorite twins or somebody else, but it's usually by the 20 or 30-minute mark of the show. You got it in at 14. Good job. In regards to what's going on with Liz Cheney, though, Jeff, I mean, I don't even know if this can last to 2024. I mean, we're in 2021. I mean, and Donald Trump, everybody kept saying he's going to go away. He's going to go away. He's going to go away. He's not going to go away. He's definitely not going to go away until 2022. Liz Cheney and the Cheney name is probably going to go away. Dick Cheney's name doesn't resonate with anybody in the conservative movement. I don't even know if it did so during the Obama administration, let alone now. So
it resonates, just not in a good way.
Right.
So you get my point. So even if you're trying to hang around to be a thorn in the side, how long does that last? I mean, heck, we heard this from Joe Walsh too. I'm going to be a thorn in the side of the Republicans in 2020. That lasted for 15 minutes and a venti coffee from Starbucks. And that was pretty much it.
Yeah, I think that she's...
No, go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, I was going to say, I mean, I think she's demonstrating a remarkable lack of self-awareness. I don't think she knows how to read the room here. Is there anybody that actually likes Liz Cheney at this point? I mean, even besides her allies besides Democrats. I mean, people who defended her in February when they were talking about removing her from her position are no longer defending her. And yeah, I disagree, Kira. She is getting canceled by the voters. The voters are going to cancel her. She's not going to make it until 2024. Okay. I mean, I wrote a piece last week saying Republicans would rather bathe in battery acid rather than to vote for Liz Cheney. People thought that was satire, but I'm serious. Nobody wants her. I saw a headline just recently about her poll numbers. Even right now, they're low. They are not going to vote for her in 2022. So how is she going to run for president when she's not even going to be reelected to Congress? Whoever's running against her in the primaries, that person is like the luckiest person in the world, because he can literally be a dead fish and still beat her, because that is how much she has damaged her brand by positioning herself as the anti-Trump. It's not because she doesn't like Trump. I don't care that she doesn't like Trump. Ben Sasse doesn't like Trump. I don't care. But it's the fact that she is basing her entire platform on not liking Trump. I mean, she wrote this pathetic op-ed for the Washington Post, and this op-ed further demonstrated why she is being ousted from her position. It's not that she doesn't like Trump, it's that she's borderline obsessed with Trump in a way that is being destructive to a Republican Party who wants to win and recognizes that Trump can help them win. She's getting in the way of that. So yeah, of course they're going to get rid of her. It's a management decision. They would be stupid not to.
First of all, you said that, you know, if you can't win your incumbency election, who would think about running for president? We literally had a dude from South Bend, Indiana, as the mayor run for president. Yeah. Have you, look, you're in Texas. Ever hear the dude by the name of Beto O'Rourke? I mean, you know, these
How many of those people won?
Pardon me?
How many of these people won?
But my point is, people can actually run. People can actually raise money. I've never
seen they can run,
do that. And I see what Kira's saying, but I mean, what needle was John Kasich really moving over at CNN? What needle was Charlie Dent really moving over at CNN? I understand what they're trying to do, but that playbook, trying to reclaim the conservative mantra, Dr. Metzler, hasn't worked. So Liz Cheney's going to triple down on it and think she's going to do something moving up into 2024 and within the actual election year?
The thing I would say relative to that is, you know, I've worked with Liz, and never underestimate the Cheney effect from a fundraising network standpoint. You know, this is the guy who headed the search for vice president, and the only candidate that was selected was him.
That's true.
You know, so look, I think she understands she has no chance in hell of winning, but I think she's gonna go out there. She's gonna fight. She doesn't really care. For her now, it's about the cash. How much money can she make relative to book deals? How much publicity can she get relative to the Democratic shows? She'll be a darling of MSNBC, as an example. That's just...
Rachel Maddow's head would explode if Liz Cheney came on MSNBC as a Republican strategist. They barely tolerate Michael Steele. But Michael Steele was always a moderate, right, Kira? Versus Liz Cheney, who, by the way, still has a lot of good rating and scores from conservative think tanks in regard to her conservative record. It's really all about the Trump when it comes to why people are against her at this point.
It's not. I know that it seems like it's Trump. Trump is the rallying point, but we have to, it's not, this isn't about Trump.
No,
this is not about the people versus the establishment. In 2010, when I first started in this business, that was the Tea Party, right? And the Tea Party was rallying around a few figures and this one cause that we had, and it was the Tea Party conservatives versus the establishment. Those people just matriculated to the Trump wing. What this is the difference between the establishment saying, hey, we've always done it this way, and this is how we're always going to do it, and the base saying, no, your way is bullshit. We're losing everything. Like, you guys have to stop and listen to what the people want. And we know this is true, Lenny, because we saw after January, the likes of Mitch McConnell come out and totally denounce Trump, right? Totally be like, he was relieved. They were all relieved that Trump lost, so they could all go back to their position as losers in Congress. And they were happy about it because they thought things were finally going to return to normal. But it took like 2 weeks for them to realize that Trump voters were super pissed, and they didn't go away when Trump lost his Twitter account. And suddenly McConnell's like, Trump had some good qualities, and we're going to fight. Like, suddenly there's this turnaround in the Republican at the top. And you got guys like DeSantis who are directly employing the Trump tactics to great effect. So I know we like to use Trump's name and he's the figurehead, but this is more a battle of people going, I'm so sick of not being heard. I'm so sick of people like Liz Cheney telling people like me, I'm the unwashed masses and I don't understand how politics work. And yet I'm the one that's affected by politics every single day. And Liz Cheney gets to fly above them in her private jet. That's what we're looking at here. That's the battle that's going on here. And guess what? The Liz Cheneys are going to lose because Trump is still really, really effective. And that mentality is still very much entrenched in the Republican voting sector. And you can see that reflected in the GOP strategy moving into 2022.
But before we go,
you hit that right on the head. And there was a reason why I did that rant against Meghan McCain, because she had that video and I had to respond. So I did my own little rant. I even did an article about it. But you're right. This is not about Trump per se. This is about an underlying issue. Yeah, Liz Cheney voted with Trump. So did Mitt Romney and a lot of other members of the establishment. But we don't like the establishment because they have messed it up for the past 10, 20 years. They say a lot of great things to get elected. They get elected and they do jack. There may be just a few of them that actually push for the causes that their constituents care about. The rest of them do nothing. They didn't care about dealing with Obamacare. They just wanted to be the opposition. When they had the chance to do something, they chose not to. That's just one issue on which they've done that. So like I said in my rant, it's time for you guys to step aside. You had your chance. You messed it up. Now let somebody else take over. You may agree with us on policy, but your strategy sucks. Your tactics suck, and they have always sucked, and you are incapable of not sucking. So let's get somebody in there who might.
Tell us how you really feel, Jeff.
I held back on that. I mean, I shouldn't hold back. But.
I can tell. And, you know, one of the things that will end up happening to you, and I'm going to isolate you, Jeff, because you've already caused yourself some harm. If you continue going down this path, it's not going to be good for you, because although you have a fresh perspective with Jeff Charles, and although you have Red and Black, and although you have Red State, guess what you eventually won't have, my good man and my good friend? You won't have Facebook like that dude. Now, we end up and then I know, I see you shivering and quaking in your shoes right now. But we just had this decision from this board that happened this week. One, this isn't really going to stop Trump the way they think it's going to in regards to severing him from his people by way of communication. And number two, this is not helping Facebook's case with anything from anti-Trump litigation, and I'll get to the smartest man on Red and Black about that in a second, to just the overall appeal of what we're trying to do in social media. Everything they claim that they're trying to do, Jeff, with this decision, it seems to be the exact opposite by way of the decision.
Yeah, I mean, and they've always been hypocritical on this issue, right? So their banning doesn't really affect me because I don't think I'm old enough for it to really matter. I don't use Facebook like that. But I want to talk about one aspect of this that I'd like to get you guys' reaction to it. But I think, and this applies to both Twitter and Facebook, I think that they made a mistake by banning him, but not for the reasons that people would think. What did Obi-Wan Kenobi say to Darth Vader when they fought on the Death Star? He said, if you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can ever imagine. Look at how Trump has been moving. He doesn't have Twitter. He doesn't have Facebook. He issues press releases, but he hasn't been a distraction. He hasn't distracted himself with stupid feuds. He said things here and there, and he is flying about as under the radar as Trump will ever get. I think this has made him more focused. I think this has made him more focused on what he needs to be doing. He hasn't been throwing rallies. You know, he loves his rallies. So I don't know if people are advising him or if he's saying, you know, I'm going to approach this a little bit more stealthily. They're not paying as much attention to him, but he is exercising his power as a kingmaker. I think he loves it. I think he's going to go back to the rallies, but in this way, he's able to move in ways that the media can't really exploit. And I think he's doing it on purpose. He doesn't have Twitter. He doesn't have Facebook to say things and have the media go crazy anymore. But I think he just seems, the way he's been moving to me has seemed a lot more focused to me. He's focused on his mission, which at this point, it's dealing with the establishment. It's getting the people out of office who opposed his agenda on the right. If you notice, he talks about Democrats, he talks about Biden, but not as much. He's going after the establishment Republicans. And I think he's going to start getting more and more aggressive gradually. I don't know if he's going to do a 2024 run. I know he's kind of teasing that because, I mean, he's a showman. That's what he does. But I think that this ban, even though I don't agree with it, I think it had an inadvertent effect of making him more effective.
Well, how about this, Kira? I can see what you're saying, Jeff, as far as being more effective, but maybe it's because there was such Trump saturation in the market that it did bring on, we talked about this, a little bit of Trump fatigue, and the ban inadvertently alleviated the Trump saturation and even some of the Trump fatigue. So again, the people that are in the middle that were like, oh, thank goodness Trump's gone. Now they have Biden. Now they're hearing about $5-6 trillion in spending. They're hearing about the culture wars. And then every now and then Trump says something. Or every now and then you're reminded about what he did to shake things up in 15 and 16. And that might be getting that silent middle. Because that's who we got in 2016 that he didn't quite get in 2020, Kira. Maybe that silent middle is starting to gravitate back over to the Trump side of things again.
You make a good point. And I think, yeah, you're right. When Trump's not around as much, you can't really blame him for everything. You know, you can see every now and then you'll see a liberal pundit like try to really like stretch really far and tie something that Biden did back to Trump. And it's like, y'all, Trump is gone. Like, and they end up looking really stupid, you know, because it's like, it's obsessive. I don't know. I'll tell you what triggers me a little bit about this conversation and what you were just saying, Lenny, is not that what you said, but the people you were referring to, that middle. We were in the punditry class, those of us who knew what was going on, begged people to stop worrying about Trump's Twitter feed.
Yeah.
And start worrying about the agenda that the Democrat Party had in plan for us if they won, which included deep censorship. As editor at large at Red State, I can tell you that the censorship that we are under right now is almost backbreaking. We are not even allowed to quote other people who talk about election fraud or vaccine skepticism. We can't even quote them, even if we're disagreeing with them. We cannot quote them, or Facebook will ban our page. That's the censorship we're under. And that's what I told that squishy middle. And a lot of us told them, you know, and now all of them here, I have a whole list of never Trumpers on my Twitter feed who now are like, you know, I didn't care for Trump personally, but at least he would never have signed this. Or I didn't care for Trump personally, but you're so freaking late. You're so freaking late to this party. You know,
Right.
I'm sick of these people. We're done with them. It's time. We those so-called intellectuals in the middle. I'm done with them. I don't have any respect for them. And I don't need you to take my side, but I need you to take a side. You know, I need you to stand up and have some balls to be able to at least say, like, yeah, you're not reinventing thought to say that Trump is kind of abrasive. You know, that is not like some kind of intellectually giant thought there. We all get it, but some of us were intelligent to see what was coming down the pipeline. Now it's here, and now y'all want to be like, well, Trump would have never done this, or Trump would. So I don't know. Can Trump go get that middle now that he's not yelling about stuff? I guess so. I guess the middle is kind of slinking back, but they'll go right back to their squishiness when the next abrasive person comes along that doesn't speak the way they want that person to speak. Guess what? The next guy that's coming is going to be worse than Trump. It's going to be worse than Trump.
They didn't in 2016, so they don't necessarily have to go back. Number one. I mean, part of it is you kind of don't know what you have to deal with until you have to deal with it. And again, right. I don't think anybody thinks that Joe Biden's getting to term 2. That's number one. Number two, if the guy that they said was going to be the moderate is now all of a sudden is becoming this big spending liberal and is becoming this big union guy and is becoming further and further left, and he hasn't even been in office a full 6 months yet, that could be enough for that silent middle to come back in. Now, I have to say this before I digress, and you can go drink your Gatorade since you don't have any wine tonight. You know, tell us how you really feel. She dropped the B round word as a lady.
I'm mad today. I'm just fussy today.
Well, the thing, you know, speaking of balls, there's a governor's race in California.
Oh, that.
Oh, Lord.
Let's go ahead and pivot. Just because you wanted to. And look, let's just pivot into what Chris is trying to, well, he didn't even try to insinuate. He just flat out insinuated it. You have Caitlyn Jenner, who went on the record, Dr. M, and said, no, I don't think that people that were born biologically as boys should compete as girls in high school sports, which made everybody's head, not everybody's head, but some people's head, boom, mind blown. Now, here's the thing, and before I hand it over to you, I want to remind everybody out there that if anybody understands the physiology in regards to sports at the highest level of competition, it's probably a person that won a decathlon at an Olympics. So before you criticize Jenner, I think that you should keep that in mind, Dr. M.
Oh, no, it's not a criticism at all. I was just, you know, making a generic statement because I think the next governor of California must have balls. You know, so whomever that is. So
I'm trying to pivot away from this. You're reeling us back into it. I feel like you're circling.
That's it. We're getting canceled.
And it's
yeah. But you know, look, I at the end of the day, I think what we're looking at is exactly what Kara said. The squishy people are going to do what the squishy people are going to do. As it relates to this entire ban of Trump and social media, I think that was the worst thing that, in fact, they could have done, because he now has the press releases with the office of president, all of those kinds of things, and those things are being communicated through a number of channels. So I think relative to that, it was a mistake. And as it relates to that Facebook board, you should, I don't know if you've seen the characters on there, but it's a really...
It's like Mos Eisley, like Cantina.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It is.
Yeah, so there you have it.
Jeff, at what point in time, I mean, is this is diminishing returns? When does the left, and you might say never, but when does the left end up saying to themselves, okay, this really hasn't worked. We might as well just give up this whole tactic, this whole strategy, because this isn't keeping the rhetoric out of the public sphere. And number two, it's not changing what people are saying. It's not changing their minds either. It's just it's more fervently entrenching what's already out there on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they'll ever learn. I mean, I think the only way they would want to stop doing this and engaging in these censorship practices is if it were actually affecting them the way it's affecting conservatives. That's not going to happen because they're the ones who are in control of it. So, I mean, a lot of people on the left aren't very big fans of free speech, and I'm talking about the hard left. People who aren't on the hard left but maybe lean that way, again, it's not affecting them, so they're not going to care. So the only way that they'll stop doing this is if the government gets involved somehow. But even then, depending on who has control of the government, I mean, the Democrats want to regulate them in a way that would have them censor more. So I think the only way that they'll actually not do this is if the government gets involved in a way that keeps them from doing it. And I don't know that's ever going to happen. I mean, because to them, this isn't even about, this is our platform and we can do what we want. Because if you start another platform that allows conservatives to say things that they don't like, they'll try to destroy it because they can't control it. So these aren't people who actually value liberty. These are authoritarians. These are left-wing authoritarians. And authoritarians are going to authoritarian. So no, they're never going to stop.
Which is different than Mandalorians just Mandalorian, right?
Oh my God.
Well, look, I would love to come to Kira and give her some love on this article, because speaking of people that need to be censored, here's this. Now, the outrage that you would think people would have, Kira, in regards to, once again, the Uncle Toms and the Uncle Tims and the Oreos. Do you know how old that really gets? But it's amazing. And I'm not usually one to say, hey, liberals, you all are a bunch of hypocrites, but I guess I'm going to say it right now. Hey, liberals, you all are a bunch of hypocrites, because we have been spending the last several years talking about how woke we are with slurs, but this one's still kind of cool and is okay. But one legislator found out the hard way.
Yeah, there's a leader of the Texas Democrat Party, I believe in Lamar County in Texas. His name is Gary O'Connell, and old white man. And after Tim Scott's rebuttal speech, he said he was so disappointed in Tim, and he really thought that he was a respectable guy, but he just proved that he's just another Oreo. And that's like, Gary, that's stepping over the line. But this would kind of relates to what Jeff was just saying. Like, they don't care. They don't care that they're hypocrites. If it's not applying to them, they don't care that this is offensive language to the other side. The other side deserves it. It's everybody else that doesn't deserve. And this is how you have to tiptoe around their labels and their, but not us, not on this side of the fence. So it was highly offensive that a white man decided that he could use that term in reference to any black man. That's not okay. I don't care if you're a Democrat or not. It's not okay.
It's just not okay.
He did get busted out for it, offered his resignation. Unfortunately, and unsurprisingly, the Democrat Party of Lamar County did not accept his resignation. So he's still working for the Democrat Party. This is another one of those things, Lenny. I'm starting to see these things pop up around the country. Little things like this where the Democrats are playing ball the way they've always played it. But because the mandate for Joe Biden is not clear, because his election was not clear, there's a lot of people out there who are noticing this stuff in the pockets they live in, and they don't like it. Voters at the voting level, a lot of times, they think very highly of themselves. They don't want to be considered hypocrites. And I think the more we see these things happening at the local level, you're going to see more and more people starting to pay attention. So I think you're right, Lenny. You said this earlier on in the show, but none of us really think that Biden's making it through a second term, one way or the other, to a second term, one way or the other. And I think part of that is going to be big mistakes like this, missteps like this. I do want to address though the censorship issue really quick, because for us at Red State, it's really affecting us, and I need people to understand there are times when your favorite writers might complain on social media about having their posts pulled, or us having to unpublish something. Like, that's the level that we're at right now, where we're having to actually go in and just trash whole pieces to save the whole business. We're under such attack right now. I agree with Jeff. They're not going to regulate themselves. I think we saw the end game during the election, why they worked so hard with the Democrat Party, because Trump was coming to break them up. And now I see that, right? And they saw that. And that's why they worked so hard. Even, I'm not even talking about my views on election fraud. I'm just talking about like that Time Magazine article that admitted that all of these things came together to collude. It's because they knew. Even today at work, I can't tell you the details, but even today, right before I got on this call, I'm having a meeting with my editors. We're trying to work out how we stay online while letting people have opinions, but yet you're not allowed to like cite any sources for these opinions because they don't like the sources, and you have to go through their fact checkers. And one of the things that we were talking about is that now Facebook and Twitter are genuinely publishers. They're genuinely acting like publishers.
They're the editors. Exactly.
They are adjudicating content. They are curating content. That's a publisher. And a publisher has a lot of different legal responsibilities than a social media platform. So what's going to happen with this? The government's going to have to break them up. And I think if we get a 2022 Republican field in Congress, and then maybe even a Republican president coming in 2024, I do think it's going to happen. It can happen. We've seen it before. We've seen it. I lived through the Apple and Microsoft antitrust. I lived through Microsoft antitrust, and we said they would never be able to do it to Microsoft.
And they did it. And our red and black legal analyst, Dr. Christopher Metzler, he of the 7,000 different middle names, he actually lived through the breakup of Standard Oil. So can you tell us what it was like to see Rockefeller on file when he went on trial? When he went?
Well, it was quite shocking, actually. So there I was.
There I was. Undertaking fire from enemy troops.
Yeah. And actually,
Black Forrest Gump.
There you go. I was there along with AOC. She was there as well.
Oh, right.
And Ted Cruz's dad. Let's not even go into that. Go ahead, Dr. Metzler.
But look, there's some serious antitrust issues here that I just believe that folks are not paying attention to. Legal analysts are crazy when they keep saying, well, Republicans are supposed to be about less government and less regulation. One has nothing to do with the other. In antitrust cases, when in fact you have this monopoly, you're going to have to break it up. There's no question about that. So I think we ought to look at that. We need to look at that coming down the pike. But as Republicans, again, we have got to own the message on this. We keep losing the message here. On this antitrust, it's not excessive regulation. Antitrust cases are filed all the time. So when you're breaking up a monopoly, that's what it is.
And so, Kara brought up something interesting, Jeff, which is this. All the angst that's happening at the lower level. The lower level is enough to influence congressional races.
Right.
That's what people miss. And once you start going to the House, now you're dealing with the purse strings.
Right.
People forget that. People think about the Senate and who's running for president, et cetera. But if you want to get back to all the things that people are complaining about over these last 5 months and the price tag that's coming out of the Biden administration, it's the congressional races that are coming up in less than 18 months. And truth is, these lower level, regional, local issues that people are getting more and more annoyed about are enough to make your look. AOC was waiting on tables. We all know that. She took a chance, and now she's a 2-term congresswoman. We have heard this thousands of times over the history of the United States of America. And heck, we just went through this, and Kira brought this up. This was much of the Tea Party movement.
Yeah.
Where there were people that weren't necessarily super experienced, and lo and behold, they win elections.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, one can argue, well, things went one way or another. Well, you know what? We got less government spending. We got some restraints on what the Obama administration wanted to do. The Obama administration, literally, people forget this. After the November 2010 election, he signed the Bush-era tax cuts and extended them, which, by the way, brought down unemployment, brought up the employment numbers for a period of time until we started campaigning against them again to run for re-election. All I say, Jeff, is the lower level stuff is enough to flip at least the House in about 18 months.
I agree 100% with that. I mean, and I've been talking about the midterms. I mean, people are focused on 2024. I'm still focused on 2022. And the issue is that we can complain about the Cheneys all we want, but nothing's going to change unless we show up during the primaries and get the right people into office. Here's my fear. I mean, because this is coming up. This is going to be a battle. And the government is eventually going to be involved in social media and in big tech. I don't know how soon that's going to happen. As much as I don't like the government involved, it's going to happen. So I want Republicans to be involved in that conversation, whether it's breaking them up or what have you. Here's what I'm afraid of happening. I mean, if people want to replace the establishment, I was having an exchange with my cousin yesterday or the other day over text message, and he was asking me about the Liz Cheney thing, right? And I was like, yeah, because she's establishment. They're do nothing. They're inept, and they don't do their jobs. And he brought up a point. He said, yeah, but you're replacing them with nut jobs, though. And I was like,
yeah.
Well, I mean, in certain cases, that is true. MTG. And here's my thing. I'm afraid that, I mean, we need to replace these people, but who do we replace them with? We need to make sure that the people that we do replace the establishment with are actually going to do what they say they're going to do. I mean, you don't have a crystal ball. You can't predict the future, but you need to vote for the person who you think is most likely to get in there and fight for what we elect them to fight for. Because if they don't, and if their messaging is off, like Dr. Metzler said, if they don't handle this the right way, the Democrats are going to own it, they're going to dominate it, and it is not going to look good for us.
Isn't that what happened over the last 4 years, though? Didn't we say we wanted to drain the swamp, and we want to restrain government and everything else, and spending went through the roof? Yeah. And some of the other things that transpired didn't happen, and as a result, I mean, look, even President Trump didn't talk about the economy as much as he should have talked about the economy when he was running for re-election. So, you know, if somebody that literally came from an escalator to the presidency doesn't get it, what hopes do we have, Kira, for conservatives to get it over the course of 18 months?
No, I'm sorry, everybody. The spending thing is over. We lost that battle. We will only ever spend more and more money in this country because no one is accountable for it. No one sees it. You know, our tax system is set up so we don't even have to pay our taxes all at once. We can trickle it out, and then we don't have to be shocked at how much we pay in taxes once a year. Every government spends more, whether they're a Republican government or a Democrat government. And I said this even when I was a liberal after 9/11 and Bush gave us that first stimulus package. I was like, if we pass this, we'll never stop passing stimulus packages. And that's exactly what has happened. So I think that the argument about, like, I'm with you, Lenny, obviously, and I believe all of us are on the same page that we need to stop spending so much, but I'm done like twisting my stomach and knots over it. That battle's lost. We're never going to rein this in. It's only ever going to be, I just can't imagine how on earth I just can't imagine. It's just fairy money now. It's just monopoly money now. So I'm not worrying about it anymore. I'm going to worry about policy. I'm going to worry about, law. I'm going to worry about the candidates that we have. But the idea that anybody's going to come in and restrain spending in Washington, D.C., it's never going to happen. And that makes me sad.
Because now we're going back to earmarks. We're going back to earmarks. So you talk about spending. From the Biden's position, they feel like if they spend all this money and give all this money to folks, they will support them and vote for them. So you're right. The spending discussion is over. we need to move on. As it relates to the Senate race and getting control of the Senate, I think that's going to be a bit more difficult, and here's why. In Georgia, for example, it depends on who the Republican candidate is. There's a lot of buzz about Herschel Walker, who currently doesn't live in Georgia. There's a lot of buzz about Herschel. Vernon is running for governor. If he becomes the nominee against Stacey Abrams, that governorship is lost. It's not going to happen in Georgia. It's just not. I mean, he was for so many years a Democrat and switched parties because he couldn't keep his seat because he did not live in the district. So all of a sudden, he became a Republican.
Oh, the opportunism of politics. And I got to say this before we go to LeBron James very, very, very quickly and then get out of here. Kira, you talk about spending doesn't really matter and balanced budgets and everything else. But as a governor, you do still have to worry about those things.
She's like, I'm not hiding.
Jeff said it went over Kira's head at first, and then she said, "Oh,
I thought you were going to get me to talk about Gavin Newsom. I guess I have to officially give up my dream of being governor because my husband just won't let me run. He just won't let me run. Like, what can I do? He doesn't know yet that I'm running for water district next year.
Oh.
Okay, so
it's a little like that's a less of a bite, right, to chew off, though.
Yeah, that is. Nope. So what I want to do is I want to bring on this dude real quick, and everybody has about a minute because I think we could talk about this more next week. But LeBron James's misstep into the whole police accountability waters continues to grow legs and get worse and worse and worse. I'm going to get initial feedback. We could talk about this more next week. Jeff, you first, because you're the one whose stomach is rumbling right now as soon as I put his picture up on the screen.
Okay. Let me start over. This
you
dude
only
gets
got
on my damn
30 seconds, Jeff, and we'll get
I just like afterwards. I don't understand it. Like, I'm not the shut up and dribble type. I think that's stupid. But every single time something happens with police, he uses his platform to fearmonger. Like when Ahmaud Arbery happened, he went out and said black people are afraid to step outside of their doors. Nigga, no, that's not true. You made that shit up. You're just saying that. Yeah. People go out of their houses. Black people go out of their houses all the time. Right. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? And I have seen LeBron James have some productive conversations on race before. But when a police shooting happens, it's like he gets so much in his emotions. He gets into that beta energy. And that's why he had to retract that dumbass tweet that he sent out about Ma'Khia Bryant. That was a tragedy. I get it. But it's almost like I called him like a white progressive in blackface because that is how he acts. I don't think he means to do it. I don't think he's being malicious. But I'm like, dude, use your brain critically. If you actually want to make a difference, you need to know how to use your platform, and you've got to be smarter with the stuff that you say.
All right, so I got to go. I mean, Kira, you got to go very quickly. Jeff literally got real black man real fast with how he felt. Holy cow, Kira, you got 20 seconds because we're going to have to get out of here. What are your initial thoughts? We'll talk about this more next week.
I think we forget that LeBron James has come from a background where he didn't really have a lot of guidance and he didn't really have a lot of stability. And I sometimes, this is the mom in me talking. Sometimes when I hear him talking, I hear a little boy who wants acceptance. And that's what I think is LeBron's biggest problem. He's always looking for acceptance. And maybe he needs to learn how to accept who he is and where he is in his life.
Dr. M, you got 7 degrees. One of them has to be in sociology or psychology or something. 20
Dr.
seconds.
M invented basketball. A lot of people don't know this, but he was one of the ones
After he left the trial with Rockefeller and breaking up Standard Oil, he and Naismith started the. Anywho, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think Kara's right. Look, and this guy, for so many years, you have to remember these professional athletes have their boys around them. One, they're trying to prove how masculine they are to their boys. That's number one. Number two, he always says specifically when it comes to police stuff, he just says some dumbass shit. I mean, that's pretty much what he does. And so I wasn't shocked by it or anything like that. That's what I expect.
So I'm going to dive more into it because there's something to be said about the athlete, the entertainer really getting more and more involved in the culture wars, good, bad, or ugly in America. And I think there's something for us to say about that, using the latest with LeBron James as a prism. So just kind of keep that on your minds for next week. All of you out there in red and black land, you keep that on your minds as well. Kara, 10 seconds. What do you got going on this week? And don't tell me you don't know because you're going to be censored on your own podcast. I don't want to hear that.
All right. Just listen to yourself with Kara Davis. Kara Davis is live. Goes every Monday night, 7 p.m. Redstate.com. I've got stuff going on over there. You can catch me on... No, I don't think I'm doing any TV this week. That'll do. Find me on davisnation.locals.com. Join that community.
All right, Jeff, you got a couple of seconds real quick and talk about why you should still watch your stuff even though Kira is trying to take over your time slot.
After you're done watching Kira, you can watch me. I'm on 1 hour after her on Monday and Wednesday evenings at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard. The second episode of my audio-only podcast, A Fresh Perspective with Jeff Charles, is dropping sometime tonight or maybe tomorrow morning. Definitely give me ratings on that. Give me awesome reviews. It's going to help me a lot. But yeah, I've got more interviews coming up, and it's going to be fun.
Dr. Metzler, what amazing adventure are you taking on over the course of this week that's going to go into another annal of history that we'll read about someday?
Well, just working out the details of my multi-platform deal. More to come on that.
And I will be having hamburgers for dinner. That's
Lenny.
I am.
And doing very important work for the children of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, there you go.
Exactly. Yay me. No, I will
said something nice.
Let me
something nice, Lenny.
I'm going to be very serious. I'm going to shout out the wonderful people at the Union League in Philadelphia that had my son and me out there for Good Citizen Day. I had a chance to participate in the 75th anniversary of Good Citizen Day, where they take high school juniors. We had to break it up virtually and some in person, but it was broken up. And they teach these kids to think about the Constitution. They put them through all type of constitutional exercises. The one that I got to teaching, you all will love this, and we're running out of time, so don't you dare answer it, was the second impeachment trial of Donald J. Trump constitutional by way of
interesting
second article of the Constitution?
And by the way, you're talking about your son. That's also my godson. So
it is also your godson. Absolutely. Absolutely. So listen, folks, we love you. We're going to get out of here. You'll see us next week. We'll dive more into the athlete and the entertainer aspect and the culture wars. We'll talk more about what Kira's doing, Jeff's doing, Chris is doing, and maybe what I'm doing, because I'm not as exciting as those three. In the meanwhile, we will talk to you next week. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. TCNGP. Take care and God bless.
Take care.
Peace.